I'm Sam from Needcraft. I'm going to show you today how to make a fantastic lampshade from one of our creative kits. So, just to let you know what you can do with your shade, you can personalise it, you can put it into your home and make it exactly to match your decor, contrast your decor, or even with your son's favourite football team. So a fantastic and unique product that you can make and personalise yourself at home. Let's have a look and see what's in our kit. So just simply slide the sleeve off. Here we go. So first of all, you have your two rings, and these are your lampshade rings. You have a plain ring, which is this circular one, and then you also have a utility ring. And you'll notice in the middle of the utility ring, there is a fitting, and this fitting is for a UK light fitting. So something that you might recognise like this at home. If you take this out, it will make the hole wider, and that will then fit your European fitting. So really versatile and should fit any lamp that you've got at home or any pendant light fitting. Also we have in our kit is our PVC, which is just handily wrapped up for you. I'll just show you my flat piece that I've got here ready on the table. So this is anti-static, it's anti-yellowing, and it's also been tested rigorously from a fire retardant point of view. So this is a completely fire resistant material. It's very high quality and professional, and it's what you'd expect to find in a lampshade on the high street. One thing you'll notice on the back is that it's got grid lines, and this panel has actually been handily cut to size for you. So there's actually no measuring at all in this product, which is great. You don't even need to get your tape measure out. On the front side, back to the white side, you'll notice here, if I just bend that back gently, that the kiss cut has already been put in for you. And I'll show you how we're going to use that later on when we make the kit up, but it does actually make it incredibly easy to make. Also in our box, we have the finishing tool, and this tool we're going to use later on to tuck all the edges of our fabric underneath our rings. And it has a serrated edge, and then as you can see, it's got two smooth sides and a pointed corner. And I'll take you through as part of the demonstration how we'll use that. One of the important parts of the kit is the double-sided tape, and this tape is very high tack tape. It's also very flexible, as you can see, and it's transparent. And you'll see how that comes into play a little bit later on. Finally, we've got a fantastic set of instructions. So these instructions are really detailed. They take you through every single step of the lampshade making process, along with hints and tips as you go along. And there we go, you can see them again on the reverse. So really, it makes it very easy to make up. So let's move on to making up our kit. So all you're going to need to make up your kit is a clean, flat surface. You'll need either a sharp craft knife or a pair of dressmaker's scissors. And if you have one, optionally, you can also use a seam roller that you might have for some other crafts at home. But that's optional and not necessary. So let's just move on to our first stage. Okay. So in terms of your covering that you're going to use for your lampshade, you just need to use a woven fabric. So a cotton or a linen or something with a weaving is useful. Don't maybe go too thick on your fabrics, so maybe avoid wools and tweeds, although it's worth giving it a try if that's what you'd like to do. And I would just avoid stretch fabrics because they don't tend to work too well on this particular type of product. So we've got a lovely woven cotton here, as you can see, with a nice all-over pattern on it. So very simply, you just need to make sure that you've got the right size of covering, and your covering is very handily here on the front of the box. So you need 97 centimetres by 25.5 centimetres. So excellent for kind of using up scraps, particularly if you've been making cushions or curtains and you want to have your shade to match. So just to take you through what we do, you simply lay out your PVC with the grid lines down, and the fabric must also be facing down on your clean flat surface. We just simply go to one side. I tend to go to the right side, and we just peel away, as you can see, the backing paper, and around about 5 to 10 centimetres is enough, and you just line that up. And then once we go down, we simply stick it down, and I just use the base of my fist to get a really smooth finish. And all we're doing is adhering the PVC onto the fabric. The trick to this part is just by simply putting your hand underneath and pulling away the backing paper from the PVC, and again just rubbing down with your fist. So really simple, making sure it's nice and smooth. There we go. And a little bit more, and nice, smooth, so it adheres well. I'll just move that over. And you'll find the more of the PVC that's stuck down onto the fabric, the easier it is to pull the paper away. There we go. Fantastic. So that's gone on nice and smooth. And I always just like to turn over and just make sure that there's no frays or any loose strands of cotton that have got caught. So that's lovely. So that's going to give us a lovely finish on our shade. Okay. The next stage is to just simply cut around the edge of the PVC. So you can either use dressmaker scissors, or you could use a craft knife, or alternatively you could use a rotary cutter if you have one at home and you're used to using them. So I'm just going to use scissors and simply cut along the edge of the PVC, just making sure that you're staying as flush as you can to the edge there. Swing that round. Okay, so there we have it, and we've still got our kiss cuts intact. Now we're going to take the kiss cut section of the PVC away. So we just simply fold it back, and I find the easiest thing is to push one down and lift one up, and that will just give you a little opening. Now with this, the idea is not to rip it off really quickly, because as you can see my fabric's fraying a little bit. So very gently, just pull the kiss cut away, making sure that you're moving any frays off. So this is a particularly fraying fabric. We're going to tuck all of this edge in so it doesn't matter too much, but you don't want to kind of encourage the frays. So just really gently pulling that away. Great. And what that kiss cut cleverly does is it leaves us with a margin exactly the right amount that we're going to tuck under the shade at the end. So it's basically doing your job for you. It's doing the measurement for you. So again, just clip up and push down, and then start to gently pull that away. And if you've got any loose threads at this stage, you can just simply cut those off so that they don't get caught. There we go. Okay, and just before we finish with the PVC panel, we just now need to take our high-tack double-sided tape. And all we need to do is just position along the edge, just on one side, so starting at the top of the PVC, not sticking it onto the fabric, it must stay on the PVC, and just close to the edge along the side there. And I just tend to use a separate pair of scissors so we don't get any glue on our fabric scissors. And just cut that off nice and neatly. And you can actually remove that tape at this stage. So just pull the tape away. There we go. Okay, so that's the panel all ready. Okay, so on to the next section, and this is the rings. So we're actually going to use our double-sided tape now to coat our rings in full. And there's a little trick to this. So if you just take the plain ring first, because it's usually the easiest to start with, we're just going to make sure that the tape, the ring sits in the centre of the tape. So it's kind of equidistant from the two edges. And we're just going to run that round, all the way around, and that's why the tape is transparent, because it allows you to see through and make sure you're getting this right. So just keep moving the tape around. And when we come to the two edges and they need to meet, I tend to cut, and I'll show you now, just a little bit so there's a tiny gap. The reason I do that is because if not, it's really difficult to take the tape off again at the end. So just a simple cut there. Okay, and then this part is key. What we need to do is try and get as much of that tape around the ring as possible. So with our fingers and thumb, we just literally roll the tape around the ring, pushing it down and making sure that we're getting that ring coated in the high-tack tape, because the rings are actually going to stick onto the PVC of our shade in the next step. So just getting as much coverage as possible. Okay, so that's our plain ring. And we're now going to repeat the process again on our utility ring. So just making sure that the ring is in the centre of the tape, and we're going to just roll the tape round. So just rolling round, and just got to the point where we meet, and I just snip just before so they don't overlap, so it's easier to take the tape off. And then just taking your fingers and your thumb, just simply pushing the tape around, just pushing it down quite firmly, making sure that it's sticking well. There we go. Okay. So that's our two rings completed, and now we're ready to roll. So to roll the shade, we need to be working down the shade towards the taped end. And I'm going to just move to the side of the table. First of all, though, we need to just take these off. So just unravel your tape. Take the release tape off. I tend to take this one off first so I can sit it on the table quite safely, and then take this one off. There we go. Just to explain about how we're going to position our rings, we just need to have a little think about the pattern on our shade. Now, this particular pattern is non-directional, which means that it can go either way up. So we can use this shade as either a pendant that will hang from the ceiling, or as a table lamp, as we've got here. What you just need to think about at this stage is if you have a direction, so usually things that are growing, things like trees, flowers, it might be children, it could be cars, things that need to be in one direction, then you will need to consider whether you want your lamp to be a table lamp or whether you want it to be a pendant lamp at this stage. So for mine, it doesn't particularly matter where I position my rings, because we can use this fabric either way up, but do have a think about what you want your shade to be as you're at this stage. What's also really important is you must make sure that the utility section on the ring is always facing inwards. So not outwards, it must sit within the PVC of the shade. So I'm just going to start rolling the rings. So here, we just need to position the ring on the PVC, not on the fabric, on the PVC, and it must just sit just on the very edge. I usually leave a very small, tiny gap so I can just see around about 1 millimetre of the PVC. And then with the other hand, once you've got one in position, it's easier to do the second one. And if you need to, you can kind of wiggle it over. So there we go. So that's on. And you can feel already the firmness. And what we need to now do is simultaneously roll the rings. So we're just very carefully keeping an eye on both edges, making sure that they're rolling equally. And you can see already that the sticky tape is doing its job. And now we can start rolling a little bit closer to the rings. We can actually use our hands lower down. So just making sure that they stay on the PVC and as close to the edge as possible. I like to make sure that before I'd stick the seam down, that they line up nicely along the top edge. So we've got a lovely smooth professional edge, because people are going to think you've bought this shade and not made it. So there we go. And then you can just gently press the seam down. And then inside, don't push here now with your hand, because that will then create a little dint. We want to make sure it's really smooth. So inside, you can push down with your hand, or alternatively, you can use the seam roller, which will give it a really secure push down without putting too much pressure on. So that's just making sure that that seam is now rolled together and it's starting to look like a professional shade. So we're going to move on to finishing the shade now. And just before we start, we just need to take our scissors, and where the seam has overlapped on the inside, you'll notice that we've got two flaps of fabric, and we just want to cut away the inside one. So I always cut away just a little bit away from the top edge, so it's not a gaping open. So we just simply take our scissors and snip that away, and then turn over. So just cut in. Okay, and what you'll also notice is the spokes on the utility ring will also need to cut into those as well. So just simply taking the fabric, and I tend to do it from the top so I can make sure I've got my scissors lined up with a spoke, just snip in, and that will mean that the fabric will sit nicely around them. So just parallel, so just a simple cut in from the top. There we go. And what we'll do now is I just always tend to start from the seam, just because then I know where I am. We're going to just push that fabric down, and you'll find that the bottom edge here starts to adhere to the glue on the ring. So just pushing down nice and firmly, give it a nice pinch. There we go. And exactly the same on the reverse side. So pushing down. And what that's doing is creating this lovely, clean, professional edge for you. So we're now ready to start using our finishing tool. So as I mentioned before, serrated edge along the top, two smooth sides, and you can use this now to tuck the fabric under. So I'm just going to show you on the plain side, and basically we are going to push the fabric underneath, and you can hear the cracking sound that that's making. That's a very good positive sound, and that's what we're looking for really. So what happens is as we're pushing under, the glue releases from the PVC and makes that noise, which means it's giving us room to push that fabric underneath. So just going round, and if it looks a bit messy and there's any loose frays, don't worry about that at this stage. So with these frays hanging down, you can take the pointed end of the tool and simply run that along the edge, and you can see that those frays are disappearing. If you have a long one, you can just snip that away. But any small loose edges you can see are all now really neatly. So just carry on pushing under, and that's giving us a really gorgeous edge that makes this shade look as good as anything on the high street, I think. We're nearly round to the seam again already. So there you can see we've got a lovely, beautiful tucked in edge. We're now going to repeat the same on the opposite side. So find the seam again, And just when we're tucking around the spokes, we just need to, I tend to use the corner for this little bit. We just need to make sure that we get both sides underneath, and we can go back onto the serrated edge. There we go, a little bit of cracking sound there. Final spoke, so just pushing underneath. There's quite a long thread there, so we'll just snip that away. And just finally, when you get to the final seam, we just need to tuck the last little piece underneath. Just wrap it under there. There we go. So we now have one gorgeous lampshade. So I hope we've inspired you today with our lampshade making kit, and that you'll get creative at home, maybe even make some for family or friends, or even consider maybe starting your own business. These are great kits, really easy to make, and look, I think you'll agree, fantastically professional.